Dude, you're gonna owe the IPC for the rest of your life now. How did you get tricked into signing that loan deal? The interest you're gonna owe.
No, I think it'll be a good investment, bro. She had really good arguments as to why I should sign this deal.
Alright, in this video we're going to be breaking down all of the IPC members, the Stonehearts, Diamond, all the board members, the IPC, its entire history. This is your one-stop shop for the IPC. Jade's coming out next patch, so we'll be talking about what we know about her, Oswald Schneider, the man that Boot Hill was asking Aventurine at the end of 2.2. We're going to talk about all of it. So the IPC is the Interastral Peace Corporation. They're honestly just like the Galaxy Honkai Star Rail version of like a reserve bank or government, I guess, in a sense. What they do isn't necessarily good or bad. They're just in it for money, profits. They want to help people, but not if they don't get anything out of it. They're a business. They're an intergalactic business that follow the path of preservation, Claypoth. But ironically, their principles don't totally align with this Eon. See, Claypoth of Preservation builds walls in the galaxy to set barriers. Yet, the IPC travel and make interstellar trade and cooperation their priority, which is kind of the exact opposite of this Eon, which makes me wonder why they're associated with this Eon to begin with. But being an intergalactic mega corporation that is responsible for the entire economy and the entire cosmos just means that you're gonna have some corrupt board members at the top. The higher up in the ranking system in the food chain that you go, the more corrupt you're probably going to get. This organization's dominance over wealth and relentless expansion have given the IPC the image of a massive corrupt business dictatorship, but the IPC really couldn't care less what people think of them. And the entire IPC today has 7 major departments and heads for those departments. The irony is that this company started long ago as people that were moving materials such as stones, wood, gold, alloys for infrastructure across worlds to basically help out struggling planets and galaxies. But since then, the IPC has long departed from their initial mission. With all the changes it's undergone, it now exists as a predatory colossal preying and trying to coerce struggling planets, trying to accumulate wealth, resources, and expansion across the known universe. Within the IPC, there's a ranking system, P13 all the way to P48 and above. P13 are staff members or office workers who hold odd jobs here and there. A P16 member is a supervisor to these odd staff members. A P25 member becomes branch directors of the department. The P35 staff members actually gain access to the Cloud Top Mansion at Pierpoint. For those of you that don't know what Pierpoint is, that is the HQ of the IPC. Once you get around the P40 mark is when you become a prestige member of the IPC, learning very much insider board secrets and things the million of staff and run-of-the-mill members have no idea about. P44 to P46 ranking is given directly to a senior manager or board member working directly under a department head. These are the Stonehearts, and I'm sure that the other board branches and members that we'll learn a lot about as this game goes on have members working directly under them as well. P48, and then there's one P50 member that we'll talk about, is the highest rank reserved for department heads who are board members of this corporation. They're the top of the food chain. Now we'll go over some of the departments. Head of Traditional Project Department. The board member is Arita, who is the highest ranking member of the IPC, ranked at P48+. Is a kind old man, and under his leadership, the Traditional Project Department was mockingly labeled as the retirement home for people who have no future. Even though he's the most senior member of the entire IPC, and they make jokes about him needing a retirement home, people still remember how powerful he was in his past younger years. Then we have the head of business consolidation, and that department head and board members, Madame Skardai, who is ranked P48. I scoured both in-game and the internet and I couldn't find anything on her. I guess the only thing I could assume is that her eye is scarred up a little bit. But yeah, besides that, we don't really know much about her, but she's one of the business elites in the IPC for a reason. Then we have head of Building Material Logistics Department, who the head of this is Taravan Kane. He is also ranked a P48. And he is one other known emanator of preservation. That's right, he's an emanator. He is an unsympathetic individual willing to prioritize market dynamics over fairness or affordability for others, despite taking the role as the head of the Department of Building Logistics, whose primary goal is to transport materials to Claypoth, and is comprised of the most adherent followers. It's unknown whether he is a believer of preservation, and apparently he's got a beer gut. I don't know why that's important, but it's out there. Diamond also convinced Teravan to lend his support in favor of the project regarding the business on Penacony after the IPC received an invitation to the banquet by the family. And we're probably going to see this unfold real soon in 2.3. You got two department heads collabing on this. That can only be bad. Oswaldo Schneider, the guy that Boothill mentions, is ranked P47. He is the head of the Marketing Development Department. Oswaldo was a former nameless like us, and is described as a passionate and hot-blooded young man, particularly in his belief in preservation, and has crazy expansionist ideals. Although he is pretty young to be a board member and very inexperienced, his very successful business strategies led the business consolidation department to adapt his product vision, and many within the IPC to believe he will soon rise the ranks of the 7 board of directors, and he just needs to gain more experience. I am very curious to know why Boothill, a Galaxy Ranger, is currently looking for him. This department is responsible for the IPC's hyper-distant delivery system. How on earth did he come into blows with Boothill? Perhaps before joining the IPC, they had some former run-ins. Or perhaps the IPC and him specifically had done something to somebody Boothill cares about. I am incredibly curious to see what exactly occurred between these two. We have the technology department, and the head of this department is Yabli, but their ranking is unknown. I'm assuming they're probably within the P47 to P50. I don't think they would exceed the top ranking member that's a P48 plus. Yabli is known for her vast scientific knowledge and business smarts. Her role as the leader of the technology department places her as a de facto controller of the Intelligentsia Guild, and her connections with the guild is noted to be an intriguing one. Interesting. And then of course we have the head of Strategic Investment Department, and this department head is the founder and leader of the 10 Stonehearts, Diamond, who is a P47 and trying to work his way up to a P48. Diamond is also an emanator of preservation. Diamond being the head of the strategic investment means, well, like it says, it's strategic investment. That's why he's always sending the Stonehearts to negotiate contracts and deals with planets that are probably struggling or they want to intervene. There's a resource there or something to gain. Being that he is an emanator of preservation, he is the one who actually gave each Stoneheart a cornerstone that gives the Stonehearts immense power. Both Diamond and Teravan being emanators of preservation means that they're probably no joke when it comes to their actual strength and power, and I'm sure there's other emanators within the IPC that we haven't heard about yet. Diamond is the one that assigned Aventurine to Penacony, and while Aventurine was successful in discovering the secrets of the Dreamflux Reef, helping prepare the stage for both Jade and Topaz, and coming back alive, he lost his cornerstone in the process, something which Diamond found unacceptable and called Jade to discuss what they would do with him, where we get that joke where Aventurine's like, I think I'm gonna get promoted. But being that Aventurine is a slave, I guess we'll see. But now, let's move on to the Stonehearts themselves, or professionally known as the non-performing asset liquidation specialists. Each member's origins and responsibilities differ. The only common thing they have, they were all selected by the Emanator of Preservation himself, Diamond, personally. These cornerstones are sacred stones that seal the authority of an Emanator of Preservation within them. The 10 Stonehearts can use their stone to obtain this share of authority and be granted great power. It is said that the 10 Stonehearts must cut their cornerstone with their own will in order to allow his brilliance to radiate. Even a shattered cornerstone can still produce a great amount of power. The 10 Stonehearts value their cornerstone more than their own lives. Probably because they'll die if they don't.
If you're feeling suicidal, you've come to the right place.
Besides Diamond himself, that's a P47, the second highest ranking member is Jade, who we saw actually recruit Aventurine, and her cornerstone is the Jade of Credit, a cold and elegant money lender. She is skilled at understanding the human heart. She's willing to wait patiently for high-value acquisitions and accept and extracting value from seemingly distant clients. If I had to guess, I'd say Jade is going to be the most crude and, I don't want to say evil, but she's higher ranking than both Aventurine and Topaz that we've seen so far. And being that she acts as a superior to both Aventurine and Topaz, I say she's more of a manager or supervisor of the Stonehearts. Jade is confirmed to be working for the IPC for quite some time now, half of an Amber era to be exact. Some early information about Jade and her cornerstone being linked to Chinese culture suggests that she might actually be linked with the Xianzhou long life species, possibly. But the most interesting part about Jade to me was her art. Her splash art has a man, herself a woman, a tree, and a snake, and that snake's part of her actual kit, and supposedly a fruit in the snake's mouth. This reminds me obviously of Adam and Eve a little bit, and we know that Hoyoverse is always making these real-life religional connections through all of their games. But in this scenario, Jade is more portrayed as the predator. Her profession is connected with giving loan, and like the snake tempted Eve to take the fruit, she maybe tempts people into taking loans just to gather the fruits of their hard labor and interest when trying to pay their loans, and eating the fruit off the tree being symbolic of that. Based on how the man actually looks, it may imply that she specifically targets men. This might seem like an odd choice, but look at her design. She's probably the most attractive character we've had in this game. And I know Hoyoverse obviously likes to release waifus and things like that, but Jade is dressed and looks in a specific way that if you are out to make money and you're in the business of giving loans and getting clientele, the way she dresses and presents herself means that she would definitely be a great target for men. As messed up as that is, but it's a smart strategy. I mean, I wouldn't put it past the IPC. Aventurine's a literal slave, and if he fails, he'll probably die. And Jade's kit's linked to have something to do with poison and damage over time, which is exactly how a loan works. You gain interest over time. She's obviously good at what she does and is able to get big returns and great investments through people, through manipulation, coercing, who knows what goes on behind the scenes. But it does seem like, from her art, that her primary target would be men. I don't know, something's just telling me that this character seems warm and welcoming on the outside, but on the inside, you're making a deal with the devil. And it could also symbolize that Adam is supposed to take the fall this time instead of Eve. That and the fact that poison and slow lingering effects is part of her actual kit. It is not hard to figure out, being a high-ranking member of the Stonehearts and everything we know about her, that she's dangerous, big time. She's definitely very, very dangerous. Now, we only know 6 of the 10 Stonehearts, and 2 members that we actually do know we don't know any information about. One is Obsidian and the other Opal. They are both at least P46, but suggested to still be working under Jade. Again, we know next to nothing about these Stonehearts, but maybe some extra Stonehearts actually show up in 2.3, which would be totally awesome, because there's still 4 that we don't even know their names, who they are, or anything. But Obsidian and Opal are both ranked higher than Aventurine and Topaz, which brings us to another member that we don't know anything about, Pearl, who is 45, being the same rank as Aventurine and Topaz. If one of the Stonehearts we haven't met yet was the most likely to show up, I think it would be Pearl, being a 45 ranked member. I don't think Diamond's gonna send multiple P46 members to go to penacony. If one can't handle it, I mean, come on. I don't think you need to send 2 or 3 supervisor or managers. And that brings us to Aventurine, who we know his real name is Kavishka, and he's from the Afghan species, and a slave who was brought into the IPC to actually be sent to the gallows. But Jade hired him, and they saw potential and that he could be of great use to the IPC. His cornerstone being the Aventurine of stratagems. Obviously, we know he's a risk taker and often wears a smile that makes his true motives a mystery. He won his current position by wagering against fate itself. He views life as a high-stakes, high-return investment, and he plays the particular gamble with masterful ease. He comes from the planet Sigonia, and Sigonians were always known to be liars, thieves, and social manipulators, wolves in sheep's clothing. He was sentenced to death by the IPC, but they hired him in exchange for his life as a slave. He can't make mistakes or else he will be executed. Very efficient at work, obviously. I mean, I probably would be too, if I had a barcode on my neck, and I didn't have a choice. This is exactly why Topaz doesn't want to work or deal with him. She really doesn't want to be responsible if something bad happens to him if she makes a mistake. And Topaz, as we've seen in Jorillo 6 and Belobog, has a conscience. His neck tattoo is a serial number, which actually resembles the word slave, which is kind of messed up. Sadly, we know that he lost his sister and his parents. Sigonia was not a very good planet. Another messed up fact is you could even say that he follows the path and is a pathstrider of preservation because he's literally trying to preserve his own life. That's so sad. I hope this guy breaks free of the IPC straight up. Sigonia was an extremely harsh surface environment with low precipitation and is constantly at risk of being hit by small-scale celestial objects. Only a few intelligent races actually live there because of these harsh conditions. One of the races on this planet being Afghan, which actually stands for honey. The Afghans are blessed with attractive facial features, beautiful eyes, and are great with wealth and emotional intelligence. And these traits inspire jealousy in others. So the slander that the Afghans face is just baseless disinformation from others, and often accused of petty theft. This led to the reputation of the Afghans to be viewed with suspicion at all times. The Afghans and the Catacans, another race on Sigonia, had a long-standing feud, and an IPC member finally initiated an operation on this planet actually led by Oswaldo Schneider, the guy Boothill's looking for. Under the IPC's guidance, Sigonia established a sovereignty in a sense, but both the Afghans and the Catacans were exiled and excluded from this sovereignty, banished to the desert. Total crap. So the Afghans and the Catacans continued their conflict, now banished from main society on Sigonia. The Catacans launched a massive attack on the Afghans, who were under the protection of the IPC. The attack absolutely decimated the Afghan population. They say that Aventurine might just be the sole survivor, and because of his reputation of his people, that might be why the IPC deliberately took him in as a slave in the first place, being able to exchange his life for his services. Knowing the Afghan stereotypes, I'm assuming they probably had a hunch that he would be quite good at his craft, and Aventurine has yet to fail as a Stoneheart. Kinda messed up. And that brings us to our final Stoneheart that we know of, Topaz, or Jelena, who was formerly a P45 rank like Aventurine and Pearl, but she got demoted at the end of Belobog's story quest with the IPC. And they wonder why the IPC is so ruthless in their investments and contracts. They don't tolerate failure at all, just corporate greed. And her partner Numby is actually capable of sniffing out where riches might be. Topaz is the leader of the Special Debts Picket Team, which is why we actually saw her in Belobog. Belobog owes a great debt to the IPC for long past contracts and agreements. Born as Jelena on a small, unremarkable planet that name only is known to the native inhabitants of that planet, the planet was extremely resource poor. Therefore, people needed to work laboriously, manufacturing products to create and export products to other civilizations in the universe. Most insisted on chemical and heavy industries, which slowly turned the planet to become a toxic environment. People with enough money buy tickets to leave a planet, while the rest were waiting for their death, until the IPC came to her home planet and used their technology to heal the damaged environment. As a payment, all of the planet inhabitants become IPC employees, and only a few years after the contract, the planet biosphere healed completely. This made Jelena a believer in the IPC and that what they could do to help planet. And because all members of her planet became IPC employees, she quickly rose the ranks and eventually joined the Strategic Investment Department, and then would be recruited by Diamond to be one of the 10 Stonehearts. Now I should note that the IPC and all of its members, including Topaz, are labeled as villains in the game. The IPC is not good. They are in it for themselves and what they do. However, I don't think Topaz is a bad person. Even though the IPC goons were harassing Belobog citizens, I do believe Topaz really thought that Belobog could use the help of the IPC. Topaz's home planet being forced to have an environmental decline. The IPC could have stepped in and helped long before this happened, but they didn't. They don't, because they're in it for money and or something they can gain. With saving Topaz's home planet, they gained an entire planet that is required now to work for the IPC. That is a bunch of employment. And they're probably not obligated to pay them crazy well either unless they perform well, like Topaz, who rose the ranks. They didn't save the planet because they genuinely care. So in its own way, Topaz is just like Aventurine. She's a slave to the IPC. A very reoccurring pattern we're seeing. No wonder Boothill wants to crack some skulls. And that is why I think Jade is high-ranking enough that she's probably in the inner circle of the corruptness that's going on. I don't think she has much of a conscience myself, but I guess we'll see. The IPC and its cronies mention in Belobog that because the IPC is going to take control of Jarrillo, that it is completely in their right to treat people the way they did. That is the IPC in a nutshell for you. What happens behind the scenes when people don't cooperate? In Bronya, when trying to decide if it's the right thing to do to sign this deal, literally states that she has to choose between slavery and freedom right before Himiko actually convinces her not to do it. It's not worth it. You'll never be the same again, and you really can't predict the fate of your people once you sign this. The IPC can basically do whatever they want. Martial law, recruitment, and the only reason Belobog was in such debt is because they had such Stellaron and Fragmentum problems that they were almost forced to take a loan and accumulate a debt that not only was impossible to pay off, but most of the people alive today weren't even really aware of it. And that is all we know about the members of the Stonehearts and the IPC in general. Again, I don't think it's like outright evil group. Like in our own real world, we need banking systems, loans, mortgages, things so we can actually own vehicles, houses, and actually just do things. However, when it comes to the government, taxes, and just the way that it works, is it often exaggerated and taken advantage of? Of course, there's always going to be corrupt people in important places. And at the end of the day, no matter what you're talking about, the medical field, drug companies, governments, world leaders, and the IPC, one thing is important above all else: profits. That is the way that the world works, whether you are in Honkai Star Rail or in our own real world. But now that I successfully just totally bummed you out, I do hope this was informative. You learned a lot about the IPC, Jade's coming out, and I can't wait to see their involvement in Penacony. Of course I'm going to cover that, but I wanted to break down the IPC and every aspect about it so that we have a better understanding before we actually jump into that story quest, and I'm very curious to see how Boothill handles his interactions with them. But thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. Like I said, I'm going to be doing the exact same video about the Stellaron Hunters and their organization, so stay tuned for that. And as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.